Hi, Mr. Carl. Thank you for your time today. So maybe firstly, you'd just like to introduce yourself.
With pleasure. My name's Bob Carr. I was the Premier of New South Wales, Australia. Chinese would talk about that position as State Governor. I was Foreign Minister of Australia, and right now I am Director of a think tank devoted to the Australia-China relationship.
You've been serving the Australian government for quite a long time. Can you maybe just firstly tell us a bit more, why did you choose to become a politician at your early stage, and what important achievements have been made these years?
I wanted to be a politician since I was about 15.
Okay.
I think my biggest contribution as Premier was in protecting the environment and lifting the standards of the education system. As Foreign Minister, I think elevating our relationship with China was my most important achievement. Yeah. As Premier, I was able to save a lot of the state's environment. I created 350 new national parks. We protected the coastline. My government introduced the world's first carbon trading scheme in January 2003. I regard climate change as the biggest challenge we face as a world. And then on education, we enhanced the literacy of students in the school system. And we focused on helping youngsters who had fallen behind other kids in the class catch up by giving them intensive tuition with a special literacy teacher. But we also ran the Sydney 2000 Olympics. I know how big the Beijing Olympics were in 2008. We were very proud of the Sydney Olympics 8 years earlier, and it was my government that staged those Olympic Games.
As the former Minister of Foreign Affairs and also the former Premier of New South Wales, you've been to China a lot, right? Many times. So what's your biggest impression about China? What kind of image have kept in your mind for a long time?
We think about China and its contemporary economic growth, the wonder, the miracle economy of China, and we all talk about how this will continue. But when I go to China, I think about the historic perspective, because I'm interested in Chinese history. I studied Chinese history. I studied the Chinese Revolution, 1911 to 1949, when I was at university. So I've always been interested in Chinese history. And when I go to China, I like to visit historic sites. For example, in Xi'an, not only the terracotta warriors and the provincial museum with its Tang Dynasty wall paintings, but as well as that, the site of the Xi'an incident. I found that very interesting. Yeah. In Shanghai, naturally I love the Great Art Museum with its priceless bronze utensils, the great collection of bronzes. I've been in Nanjing. I've been to the Great Memorial to Sun Yat-sen, and outside Guangdong, I visited the Whampoa Military Academy.
Okay, so how many times do you remember you've been to China?
Oh, about a dozen times, but I now think in the job I've got now, running a think tank on the Australia-China relations, I'll go there more often. Yeah. I want to recruit Chinese scholars to help us understand the relations between Australia and China, and to work at practical tasks about strengthening those relations.
Throughout these years, do you see what's the difference in China?
The modernisation of China and progress in cleaning up the environment. There's much cleaner air in Guangzhou when I go there now than there was when I first went there. I'd like to think that China's making progress on this very important task of enhancing its environment. Okay. And I look forward on my visits to seeing more signs, more evidence of environmental progress.
Talking about China-Australia relationship, how do you see the current bilateral relationship?
I think after President Xi's recent visit and after the signing of the Free Trade Agreement, after the President's speech to the Australian Parliament, relations are very, very good. I think the challenge for Australia is to continue to be carefully neutral We value our neutrality, and we think it's in Australia's interest, and the majority of Australians support Australia being strictly neutral.
So with this newly set up more comprehensive strategic partnership, what is the most important impact do you think it has on Australia, maybe in the coming few years?
I think more coordination between Australia and China in making foreign policy. I think we can move to more, and this is work my institute will do, more defence cooperation, sharing perspectives on Southeast Asia and the South Pacific.
Okay. Maybe let's talk about ACRI a bit more. So why did you decide to accept the invitation from UTS to lead this Australia-China Relationship Institute?
The re-emergence of China to great power status is a very dramatic story of our time. You appreciate this if you know some Chinese history. I don't know enough, but I know enough to know that China was a great power in the early 19th century. I think being at this think tank, looking at the Australia-China relationship, is an opportunity to see up close how China's character is changing domestically and how its international behaviour is changing as well over the years ahead.
So tell us a bit more about your current job. What's your main focus? Any particular important projects going on?
A number of projects. We're exploring that matter of more defence cooperation between Australia and China. We'd like that to take place. We are looking at the practical growth of trade in the wake of the free trade agreement. What does it mean for Australian beef, for example, live cattle exports? We're looking at how we can get more Australian students at school and at university to study Mandarin.
How do you see the future direction of this institution goes?
I think it should go very well. We have a visit this week in Sydney of the Secretary General of the Boao Forum, and I think Ambassador Joe will discuss with us ideas for our institute cooperating with Boao, and a lot of Australian companies, senior people, are very interested in that forum.
So maybe at last, you have any comments on Australia-China relationship, any like the future direction, what you see?
I think they can only grow stronger. I'm very positive and I'm very optimistic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thanks for your time.